Hello, my name is Christopher Renstrom. I'm the creator of rulingplanets.com and Christopher Renstrom Astrology. And this time, I wanted to share with you my horoscope forecast for June 2025. On June 2nd, there will be a first quarter moon in the zodiac sign of Virgo. Thoughts move from concept to execution in the blink of an eye when the moon in Virgo squares the sun in Gemini. There will be no hemming, there will be no hawing, or second-guessing. You will target what you want and fly to it as swiftly as an arrow. This is an excellent energy for public speaking, writing, or presenting your case, because your thinking is clear and your argument compelling. It's also wonderful for sizing up situations on the spot and for problem solving. Are you into tennis or gaming? If you are, then today is your lucky day because your eye-to-hand coordination has never been better. In fact, it's almost flawless. You could walk away with one of your best games ever. Signs most affected are Gemini, Cancer, Virgo, and Sagittarius. On June 4th, Venus forms a sextile to Jupiter. Meeting someone unlike anyone you have ever met before is always thrilling. And that's something you can look forward to when Venus in Aries forms a sextile to Jupiter right when it's winding up its year-long stay in the zodiac sign of Gemini. But does this person feel the same way? And will it last? Well, that's the adventure you'll be embarking on over the next few weeks as you're drawn into one another's orbit. Whether it's a romantic encounter, a professional collaboration, or meeting a mentor, you can rest assured that this person is going to have an enormous impact on you and where you go next in your life. Signs most affected are Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Leo, Libra, and Sagittarius. On June 5th, Mercury forms a sextile to Mars. It's amazing how quickly working on a project or brainstorming to solve a problem brings you and an estranged friend back together again. It's been a long time since you've enjoyed each other's company, and the joy is felt on both sides. But is this enough to reconcile differences or to put away a grudge? It could be. The wonderful thing about today's Mercury-Mars sextile is that its playful collaboration dissolves all defenses. Your natural rapport and comfort with one another is more than enough to assuage the hurt feelings that kept you apart. This reunion is something you two can do again, and hopefully you will. Signs most affected are Aries, Gemini, Leo, Libra, and Sagittarius. On June 6th, Venus enters the zodiac sign of Taurus. Thank heavens. Thank heavens Venus is finally entering the zodiac sign that it rules. Its prolonged stay in the zodiac sign of Aries, made longer because of its retrograde, has caused a lot of breakups, has caused a lot of dissension, has caused a lot of disruption and parting of the ways. And that's because Venus is in detriment in the zodiac sign of Aries. Indeed, Venus is in detriment in any zodiac sign that is ruled by the planet Mars, named after the god of war. Venus wants to be in a zodiac sign that she rules, and who wouldn't? Venus is named after the Roman goddess of love and beauty, and the values she espouses are the values of love, harmony, and peace. And as everyone knows, you make more money during a time of peace than you do during a time of war. So Venus in the zodiac sign of Taurus, which is an earth sign, promises to bring stability and prosperity. You can kind of think of it as throwing dirt on a campfire in order to extinguish it and to make sure that it's gone out. Another way to think of Venus in Taurus is that you get more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. During this period of time, arguments will be dialed down, disputes will be resolved. There may very well be no more wars, there may be good trade. This is a time for people to go to work and to produce without being harassed. And again, Venus in Taurus brings about that stability and security, something that we often take for granted in our lives, but boy, boy, oh boy, do we miss it when things have gone south. Venus will be in the zodiac sign of Taurus from June 5th until July 4th. Signs most affected are Taurus, Virgo, Libra, and Capricorn. On June 8th, Mercury enters the zodiac sign of Cancer. You may notice how you're having trouble dragging yourself out of bed in the morning, and how you're spacing out in mid-conversation, or you're desperate to just take a quick cat nap during your lunch break. Did you suddenly develop narcolepsy? No. But drowsiness is the order of the day when Mercury, the planet of the mind, is traveling through the realm of the moon. Now, don't try to fight the drooping eyelids by fueling up with caffeine or Red Bull. You'll only make matters worse. And that's because this is your unconscious's way of getting you to unplug. At the very least, you'll wake up from one of these stupors or dozes feeling renewed and regenerated. Then again, you could reemerge from your slumber with a fascinating idea or a fresh take on an old problem. People with strong lunar energy do some of their best thinking in their sleep. And with Mercury in Cancer until June 26th, you will too. Signs most affected are Gemini, Cancer, Virgo, Scorpio, and Pisces. On June 9th, Jupiter enters the zodiac sign of Cancer. This is wonderful news for people born under Cancer, because Jupiter is the planet of good fortune and higher purpose. That means that you will enjoy the benefits, the blessings of Jupiter for an entire year, because that's how long Jupiter will be traveling through your zodiac sign. This is so wonderful because it's going to be traveling through your zodiac sign when it's not being compromised by Pluto in Capricorn or Saturn in Capricorn or any of those things that you've had to deal with the past 12 years. This time you get the entire wonderful effect of Jupiter in your zodiac sign. And what makes it even more special for you is that Jupiter is exalted in the zodiac sign of Cancer. So what does that mean, exalted? What it means is most celebrated. Now, that doesn't mean that you're going to be walking down the street and suddenly people around you will break out into huzzas, and praise and celebration of your every step. What it does mean is that things in life are finally going your way. Those opportunities that you wish would come your way will finally fall into your lap. Those breaks that you've been praying for will appear. And those promises that you were made, people will finally deliver on. Jupiter is like the guardian angel of astrology. It's always watching over the zodiac sign that it happens to be traveling through. And this time, it's your turn to enjoy all of that abundance. And abundance is a wonderful word to use with Jupiter. The reason Jupiter is exalted in Cancer is because Cancer is the zodiac sign of the summer solstice. And the summer solstice here in the Northern Hemisphere is the season of abundance because it's connected with summer. This is the time of year when neighbors are coming by and saying, hey, do you want some cucumbers or do you want some tomatoes or some fruit? And so there's really more than you could possibly keep to yourself. So with great abundance comes a great sharing, which is something that Jupiter is always game for. So abundance in the sense of Jupiter moving through Cancer doesn't mean that you're going to win the lottery or the sweepstakes or anything along those lines. What it means is that you're always going to have enough to get by. More than enough, in fact, because you'll have enough to share with people that you know and even with people that you don't know. Your shelves will never be empty during this period of time, and your resources will always renew themselves. You may also notice during this time that Jupiter is traveling through your zodiac sign that things like money materialize out of nowhere to help you out in an unexpected emergency, or someone you barely know comes through in your hour of need. Jupiter is the pay-it-forward planet, and this is how it promotes good fortune throughout the world. It's through acts of kindness, acts of charity, providing help when others need it. And this is also how it promotes an abiding spirit of humanity that knows no borders. Protective and sheltering, Jupiter, the planet of sanctuaries, smiles on those who provide a safe space, whether it's a shoulder to lean on or shelter from the storm. Jupiter will be in Cancer through July 1st, 2026. Signs most affected are Cancer, Scorpio, Sagittarius, and Pisces. On June 11th, there will be a full moon in Sagittarius. Your emotions are loud and your opinions colorful whenever there's a full moon in the zodiac sign of Sagittarius. There will be nothing muted about your feelings today, and you believe in making them known right away, uncensored and without apology. People may not like it, but that's their problem. You're being true to what you feel in the moment. You're apt to be more expressive than receptive today, which means that anyone who wants to talk about their feelings is going to have to crank up the volume. Otherwise, they're going to get drowned out. It's true that there's a tendency to take up all the oxygen in the room when the full moon is in Sagittarius, yet it can be said unequivocally that there is no full moon more uplifting when spirits are down. Signs most affected are Aries, Cancer, Leo, and Sagittarius. Another planetary aspect taking place on June 11th is Mercury, forming a sextile to Venus. Mercury and Venus are the minglers in the zodiac, so you can expect to be invited to all kinds of get-togethers while these two planets are forming a sextile in the sky. They will bring a breath of fresh air to your social calendar as you make the acquaintance of people that you wouldn't typically meet. It's a great opportunity to broaden your horizons, add to your contacts list, and even brush up on your conversational skills. This planetary energy is usually chatty and fly-by-night, except that you could be making the acquaintance of someone who will go on to become a major player in your life right now. But you'll have to wait to see how all of that unfolds during the rest of June and July. Signs most affected are Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Virgo, and Libra. On June 15th, Mars forms a square to Uranus. No good deed goes unpunished. When Mars in Leo forms a square to Uranus and Taurus in the sky, not only did your recent heroic deed fail to impress, it looks like it may even have circled back and bitten you in the derriere. You really thought that you were doing the right thing by standing up for someone who wouldn't stand up for themselves, calling out a bully who was dominating a friend, or running to a loved one's rescue. But our noble acts in the moment don't always align with others' wants and needs as others see them. So get ready to bear the brunt of an intimate's fury, to smile bravely as insults are hurled at you, or to find something else to do with yourself while a coworker gives you the silent treatment. Now you know that what you did was for the best. And even if it's not appreciated now, one day it will be. And that's what makes all of this aggravation worthwhile. Signs most affected are Aries, Cancer, Leo, and Sagittarius. Another planetary aspect taking place on June 15th is Jupiter, forming a square to Saturn. This is one of astrology's squid versus the whale combinations. Now, Jupiter represents your higher purpose, which means you'll be feeling the urge to break free of any constraints and entanglements that are keeping you from realizing your true potential. You believe that your real life lies somewhere else. Saturn, however, insists that you make something of yourself in the here and now. By forcing you to hunker down, Saturn shows that you actually have the discipline, the resources, and ingenuity to make your dreams a reality, as long as you work with what's at hand and don't walk away from the tall order that looks so daunting. It's a struggle, but it's a struggle That's worth it. Signs most affected are Aries, Cancer, Libra, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. On June 17th, Mars enters the zodiac sign of Virgo. Mars, the planet of gumption and drive, enters the zodiac sign of Virgo today, so this is bound to make you more industrious, organized, and even a tad hypercritical. But there's more to Mars's journey in Virgo than just that. Of all the 12 signs in the zodiac, only Virgo depicts a woman. That's saying a lot, considering that astrology has been around for over 2,500 years. Virgo has always been depicted as a woman, especially an unmarried woman, living in a man's world. Mars, in this placement, is going to champion women's rights, along with the rights of anyone else who feels ignored, oppressed, or disenfranchised. Mars also expresses strength in the zodiac sign that it's passing through. Some zodiac signs outmuscle, intimidate, or resist. Virgo outwits. So look for that area in your life where you feel held back or put down, and use your head instead of your anger. Mars in Virgo emphasizes shrewdness, which means that where there's a wile, there's a way. Mars will be in the zodiac sign of Virgo from June 17th until August 6th. Signs most affected are Aries, Taurus, Virgo, Scorpio, and Capricorn. On June 18th, there will be a last quarter moon in the zodiac sign of Pisces. Now, last quarter moons are important because they signal the end of a lunar cycle. This is a period of time where things are being wound up, where I's are being dotted, T's are being crossed, and things are coming in for a landing. It's like concluding a certain chapter. Now, this particular last quarter moon in Pisces is especially important because it will be forming a sextile to Uranus at the 29th degree of Taurus. Now, Uranus is the planet of revelation. So somehow in things coming to an end, in things coming to a conclusion, there's also going to be a very important revelation in store for you. Now, the word that comes to mind when I think of this last quarter moon is the word denouement. Denouement means to unknot. Now, with the ending of a play, you'll have the ending of the play. Either all the characters are dead on stage or they're celebrating by someone getting married. That's what happens in either a tragedy or a comedy. But in several plays and even some movies, you have this little moment that follows the end of the story. It follows the conclusion and it reveals something that we didn't know before. Now, a wonderful example of this is the film The Sixth Sense. If you're not familiar with the film The Sixth Sense, it's basically the story of a psychiatrist who kind of goes the extra length for his patients to help them out. And at the beginning of the film, he's confronted by a patient who is deeply mentally disturbed and who shoots him. He takes out a gun and shoots him. Well, fortunately, the psychiatrist survives the shooting. He wakes up a bit later, to realize that he survived the shooting, and he goes about his practice, which is seeing different patients and things like this. One of the patients that he sees is a little boy named Cole, and Cole tells him in their therapy session that he can see dead people. And Bruce Willis, who plays the psychiatrist, has this wonderful mix of gentility and amusement at the revelation of that information. He's amused that, this is something that the boy believes that he can do, but he's also intrigued. He wants to know what this boy sees, what this boy is dealing with. Okay, and so as the story goes on, it's really the story of Cole proving to Bruce Willis, the psychiatrist, that he does indeed have the ability to see the dead, and Bruce Willis helping him to come to an acceptance with that ability, with that talent, and even seeing it as a gift rather than a curse. All right, and so what Cole, at a very young age, discovers is that he actually has a purpose in life, which is to help dead people find peace following the way that they died. And that's pretty much the end of the film. Cole realizing that he's not cursed and that he actually has a part to play in the lives, or shall I say, the afterlives of other people. But that's not the ending of the film. At the end of the film, Bruce Willis, feeling very happy and fulfilled that he's been able to help out the boy, comes back home to where his wife is sleeping. And as she sleeps, she mutters his name, and the wedding ring that's on her finger drops off her finger and rolls across the floor. And it's at that moment that Bruce Willis looks down at his own hand and he notices that he's not wearing a wedding ring on his finger. And in that moment, he recalls instantly what Cole told him, that he can see dead people. And another thing that Cole told him is that dead people only see what they want to see. And that's when Bruce Willis, the psychiatrist, I think his name is Malcolm, sort of feels around his back or his side, and he suddenly feels the gunshot injury that the disturbed patient's bullet killed him. And he suddenly realizes that he did not survive being shot by his patient, and that he is indeed dead, and that he has been dead the entire time that Cole has been visiting him as his patient. In other words, Cole, because he can see dead people, just accepted that, okay, now his therapist was going to be a dead person, but it was Bruce Willis who mistakenly believed that he was still alive, treating a patient, the boy Cole. And so this is kind of the image that I want you to carry in mind as you experience the last quarter moon in Pisces forming a sextile to Uranus. Now, this doesn't mean that you're suddenly going to see dead people or realize that you yourself are a dearly departed spirit and you're just now cluing in. No, it doesn't mean any of those things. But what it means is that you're going to come to a conclusion with a very long-standing emotional episode for you. Actually, it's more an emotional situation. It might have been even the way that you left a relationship or an association, and maybe you always carried these grudges or this sadness or this longing or something along those lines. And with this last quarter moon in Pisces, it's not only going to be a sort of falling away, but there will also be a realization that comes of this. A surprise realization, a way of seeing the situation or yourself that you hadn't seen it in that particular way or from that perspective before. So ending and the realization that follows an ending is the theme of this particular last quarter moon in Pisces. And it's something that you can take with you into your next lunar cycle. Signs most affected are Gemini, Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. Another planetary aspect taking place on June 18th is Jupiter, forming a square to Neptune. Jupiter is the planet of what I believe, and Neptune is the planet of what I yearn for. And when these two planets square off against each other in the heavens, you may discover yourself torn between the truth that you want to believe and the way that you hope that things will play out. Now, this may sound like the dilemma of romantics and dreamers who don't want to face or accept reality, but not even skeptics are immune to blindly putting their faith in the sovereignty of facts or manipulating an argument to suit the result that they think is right. In other words, nobody's being particularly objective or impartial during this time. Everyone is at sea. So question the experts, challenge the conventional wisdom, and don't be so quick to pass over the reins to somebody else. You need to follow a higher authority right now, and that may reside within you rather than above. Signs most affected are Aries, Cancer, Libra, Sagittarius, Capricorn, and Pisces. On June 20th, the Sun enters the zodiac sign of Cancer. Here in the Northern Hemisphere, where Western astrology originates, summer is a lullaby season. Days are long, nights are short, and you can sleep out under the stars if you want. Everything you could possibly wish for is in reach. You can pluck fruit from the trees, pull vegetables out of the soil, or hook a fish while lazily dozing on the riverbank. Summertime is when the living is easy, because Mother Nature is here to provide. And like an infant sucking at the breast, you can nestle peacefully, knowing that you are well cared for. Now you might laugh and say, I wish. But this dream of abundance is encoded into the very essence of this season. In fact, you're so enthralled by this idol that even if you know it's not true, that won't stop you from striving to make it true for those you love and care about. This is the way life should be. And with Jupiter currently exalted in the zodiac sign of the Crab, you will endeavor to make it happen. Signs most affected are Cancer, Leo, Scorpio, and Pisces. On June 22nd, Mars forms a sextile to Jupiter. A mountain reverts to its former status as a molehill when Mars forms a benevolent sextile to Jupiter in the sky. This promises to quiet the hullabaloo surrounding a work situation that came dangerously close to going off the rails a couple of weeks ago. Not only will you avoid the looming fiasco, but you and a rival will be putting aside your differences in order to help each other up and over a professional hurdle. It's in both of your best interests to work together now, and who knows, this might even have the makings of a new friendship. Signs most affected are Taurus, Cancer, Virgo, Capricorn, and Pisces. Another planetary aspect taking place on June 22nd is the Sun forming a square to Saturn. This is what I call the spare the rod, spoil the child square. What we have here is two very different approaches to discipline and two very different approaches to authority. We basically actually have two very different approaches to parenting because Aries is one of the three zodiac signs of the father. The other two are Leo and Capricorn, and Cancer is one of the three zodiac signs of the mother, and the other two are Scorpio and Virgo. So what you have here with the Saturn and Aries is that sort of don't spare the rod type of approach to things, that you have to exercise authority in all things. Aries is basically what I call coach dad in astrology. He's the father who wants to toughen you up, who wants you to be the best that you can be, who will ask you to drop on the floor and give him 50 push-ups. And after you're done with your 50 push-ups and you're really exhausted, he'll say, and next time you're going to give me 25 more. So Saturn in Aries has this tendency to always raise the bar. And it feels very powerfully, it feels very strongly that you have to be tough on people. You have to be tough on people because they're never going to excel if you're soft, if you're lenient. So being tough on people is going to get them to do their personal best, to bring out the best in them. Now, as you might imagine, this is not the Sun in Cancer's view of discipline and authority. Okay, the Sun in Cancer doesn't believe in being tough on people. It believes in being supportive of people. You know, that you support the parts of the person that need encouragement, that you listen to their anxieties, you hold their hand whenever they feel worried or fearful, and you talk them through the tough times when they're getting down on themselves or when the world feels like it's overwhelming. Okay, so a Sun in Cancer really wants to be present for someone emotionally, and they want to nurture that person, and they believe that through nurturing, you bring out those qualities that are the best in someone, and that if someone wants to strengthen those qualities, they want to build on those qualities, then they're going to do it because this is what they want to do, and the process is going to be organic. It's not going to be enforced. So Sun in Cancer will tend to attend to the weaknesses of someone else, to tend to their anxieties and their fears, and it will want to soothe and help make things better. Now, in a square, we have one planet going at loggerheads with another planet. Both planets believe that they're in the right. The Saturn in Aries believes that you have to get people to toughen up, if you want them to go the distance. And the Sun in Cancer believes that, you know what? Everything looks a lot better on a full stomach. Let the person have a nice meal, relax, come home, get a good night's sleep, and whatever was troubling you, at work or in the day that you just experienced will look a lot better in the morning after you've had a chance to sleep on it. So Saturn in Aries is persistent and challenging, and the Sun in Cancer is restorative and recuperative. And as I said, these two planets are going to lock horns, they're going to square. You may find yourself in a dilemma where you're dealing with an authority who's being really down on you, who says they want the best for you, but they're doing it in a very challenging and domineering way. Or you may feel like you're dealing with an authority who coddles too much, who lets everyone get away with it, so to speak, who feels like everyone should be praised and no one should be particularly outstanding because that might hurt somebody else's feelings. All right, so you might find yourself in a situation where you face these two different voices. Or you might find yourself in a situation where you're one part of the square. You might be the Saturn in Aries, who's getting tough with people, or you might be the Sun in Cancer, who's coming to the defense of someone and warding off the Saturn in Aries energy that wants to get tough on people and is being too mean and unfeeling. Okay, so what you have with the square is both sides are right and both sides are wrong. And that truth isn't going to be empirical. It's not going to be objective. It's not something that you can point to and say, oh, that's true. That truth is going to be a personal truth. And it's going to be something that leads you forward. And it's going to show you how you want to exercise authority and be supportive of people in your life. Signs most affected are Aries, Cancer, Leo, Libra, Capricorn, and Aquarius. On June 23rd, the Sun will form a square to Neptune. I think it's very telling that this Sun-Neptune square follows right on the heels of the Sun-Saturn square that I was just talking about. With the Sun-Saturn square, we have the great question, am I being too hard or am I not being hard enough? Okay, so it's really a question of intensity and in the way that one exercises authority over other people in your life. Now, with the Sun-Neptune square, what's fascinating about this is that we're kind of dealing with father myths. Now, remember what I just said in the previous planetary aspect. Aries is one of the zodiac signs of the father, and it's in particular the zodiac sign of what I call Coach Dad. The father that's going to tell you to hit the floor, give him 50 push-ups, and when you finish 50, challenge you with giving him 25 more. Okay, so this is a father that always wants the best for you. That's part of Aries. Another part of Aries is something that we call here in the United States of America, the American cowboy. Okay, and the American cowboy is very much United States of American myth. It talks about fellows out on the American plains or in the American West. They might sort of look like Clint Eastwood and chew tobacco and spit and have a hard burned skin from being out in the sun so long, and they carry a gun and they're gunslingers and they get into duels and they get roped into all sorts of situations and all these kinds of things. But what this represents a lot for men, basically, in America nowadays, is the I make my own rules kind of guy. Okay, and so Neptune, whenever it's in a zodiac sign, mythologizes the elements or the characteristics of that sign. If Aries is a loner, then being a loner is mythologized. If Aries is about fighting duels and winning them, then fighting duels and winning them is mythologized. If Aries is hard-bitten and makes his own rules, then I think you get the idea. All of those things are mythologized to a bit of an extreme. And sometimes what happens is that a society will celebrate those qualities. They'll be like, yeah, that guy's really tough because he told everyone else, I'm not going to follow your rule, or I'm going to make my own rules, or I'm going to be flippant, or, out-guy you, or something like that in some way. And mids have a tendency to inform culture and the way that people can behave. Myths have a tendency to sort of sell themselves as doable beliefs, and they might not always be leading someone in what is a direction that might be healthy or even good for them. All right. So, what happens here with Neptune glamorizing these aspects of Aries is that it is forming a square to the sun in Cancer. And as we talked about in the previous planetary aspect, Cancer is the zodiac sign of the good mother because of its association here in the Northern Hemisphere with the season of summer, which was seen as the season of abundance. So, Cancer is all about bonding and belonging and being loved and loving. And that doesn't really jibe with the cowboy Neptune and Aries persona or energy that's out there in the culture. And so again, this is a question of authority. This is a question of like how you express your authority because we're dealing with two cardinal signs here. Aries is a cardinal sign, Cancer is a cardinal sign, and cardinal signs, as we know, are the zodiac signs of the unstoppable force. They believe that this is the way that things should be done, and they're not going to stop or be diverted. Aries believes in locking horns in combat, and it believes in being competitive and may the best man or the best woman win. Okay, Cancer believes in caring for people, in addressing people's needs and emotional concerns. And Cancer also believes that maybe the reason why people are being so rough-edged and hard-bitten is because they never got that love at home, or it's because whenever they showed their weakness, it was laughed at or ridiculed, or whenever they expressed their needs went ignored or neglected. This is the way that a sun in Cancer thinks. It's kind of asking itself and even another person, what are you compensating for? What are you trying to hide? Now, this doesn't mean that, someone under the influence of Neptune and Aries is suddenly going to cry and say, oh my God, I need to get in touch with my inner child and you've uncovered it. If anything, you're going to have the opposite reaction in a square. The person is going to become even more entrenched in their position, and they're going to show you even more that they have no needs and they have no weakness and they're tough and they do everything with an element of grit. Okay. But the square still expresses a compelling argument. There's something to be said for the person who feels hardened and like they can't show their soft spot, just as there's something to be said for the person who's reaching out and trying to bond and trying to create a sense of belonging. And maybe some people might feel overmothered or smothered or overparented by something like this. So again, this might be something that's showing up in your life. It might be your home life or your personal life. You might be with someone who, you feel is always trying to search out your weakness or your soft spot, and you don't trust their leading questions about their inner life. Or you might be someone who's really, kind of like that song Desperado. They're out on the fences and the plain, and they won't come home because they're alone, and only they know what it's like to be like that, and they have to be hard bitten and tough or something like that. And you're just like, why don't you just come home and have some dinner, and then you can go back to your fences, Desperado. Okay, so you may feel again with the square you're on one side or another, or you may even be between these two forces. But the value of a square isn't to find a resolution or a problem. The value of a square is to re-examine your position, okay, to re-examine your relationship to what being tough is all about, or to re-examine your relationship to being nurturing or the more loving of maybe the two people involved in a relationship or an association. And that if you're feeling a friction or like you're not fitting or like you're coming together, it's not about you overwhelming the other person or the other person overwhelming you. It's about finding a new way to create a conversation, a new way for you to relate. and a new way to forge those ties that bind. Signs most affected are Aries, Cancer, Leo, Libra, Capricorn, and Pisces. On June 24th, the Sun conjoins Jupiter in the zodiac sign of Cancer. Now, this is what we call Jupiter Cazimi, okay, which is a wonderful way to describe what's going on in the sky right now. When the Sun and Jupiter form a conjunction in the sky, that means that they're at the same place at the same time. In the list of Ptolemaic aspects, a conjunction is when two planetary energies are very much on the same page. Now, sometimes planetary energies can be on the same page as in terms of being dour. Sometimes they can be on the same page as being despairing. Sometimes they could be on the same page as being funny or getting one another's jokes. Or sometimes they can be on the same page like they are with the Jupiter Cazimi in sharing the wealth, sharing the prosperity of good fortune. This is what they used to call back in the day a lucky day, okay? That's whenever the Sun forms a conjunction to Jupiter. But Jupiter is exalted in the zodiac sign of Cancer. That means Jupiter is the most celebrated. Jupiter is the most benevolent. Jupiter is the most powerful. So this can easily be described as the luckiest day of the entire year. It's also the luckiest day in a long time. In fact, we haven't had a Sun-Jupiter conjunction in the zodiac sign of Cancer since July 20th, 2002. We almost did in 2013, but they just missed by a couple of days. So this is the day when you get to parade around like the emperor or the empress that you are. Now, it may be just one of those lovely days where it's just wonderful from dawn to dusk, or it might be something in which a wonderful opportunity is presented, in which you sign on a deal, in which the person that you've been courting finally says yes, or you get an acceptance on a loan, something special happens. That's going to probably happen today. And I don't want to put any pressure on you, but a Cazimi only lasts as long as the actual conjunction itself, which is about 24 hours. So make the best of it while you can. And if you don't feel like you want to make the best of anything, then just enjoy it. Because after all, how many times do we have such a lovely, lovely day? Signs most affected are Cancer, Leo, Scorpio, Sagittarius, and Pisces. On June 25th, there will be a new moon in the zodiac sign of Cancer. Honoring your roots is a good idea when there's a new moon in Cancer. You may want to research your family story, visit a favorite childhood spot, or spend time with an older relative. It may feel like you're just indulging some nostalgic whim, but these dips into the pool of our memory can refresh and restore us when we're feeling parched and dry. Each of us is a link in a chain to the past, which means that each of us has a duty to pass down the things that have been passed down for generations. This new moon in Cancer serves as a reminder that treasures lie in trivial things, and that the objects that appear commonplace now will be seen as priceless in the future. Signs most affected are Taurus, Cancer, Virgo, Scorpio, and Pisces. On June 26th, the Sun forms a sextile to Mars. You know what you're good at. You fill a certain niche at work, produce top quality results, and you're always on call when someone needs you. It's gotten you far, and you're proud of it. However, your job performance has come to the attention of certain higher-ups who'd like you to take on more. They see you as someone who could run things more smoothly and even increase efficiency. The question is, do you? It's flattering to be held in such high regard, but think about the lifestyle changes and whether they're worth it. Nobody's ready to make this offer yet, but soon they will be. Signs most affected are Taurus, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Scorpio, and Pisces. Another planetary aspect taking place on June 26th is Mercury, entering the zodiac sign of Leo. Mercury, in the realm of the sun, means that you have to be true to yourself now. This will lead you to speak up in situations that you've been quiet about and to draw the line with friends and co-workers who've gotten a bit too demanding lately. The sun is the planet of the heart, and for the first time in weeks, you will feel like you can truly speak from your heart, rather than having to run things past your feelings first. Living in the moment will become increasingly important for you, and you may surprise yourself and even surprise your friends with some of the dramatic decisions you make on June 27th, June 28th, and July 7th. Signs most affected are Aries, Gemini, Leo, Libra, and Sagittarius. On June 27th, Mercury forms a trine to Saturn. Usually strokes of genius are just that, strokes. You may be excited by an idea, seized by an impulse, or bedazzled by an intuitive flash. But since these inspirations rarely coincide with conducive circumstances, they can often be left to wither on the vine. Fortunately, today's Mercury-Saturn trine shows that you will be speaking to a receptive audience. This means that there are people around you who get what you are about and can help you to put those ideas of yours into action so that they produce tangible results. This is good, because after months of rough sketching, you'll see at least one idea make the leap from drawing board to material world. Signs most affected are Aries, Gemini, Leo, Libra, Sagittarius, and Aquarius. On June 28th, Mercury forms a trine to Neptune. This is a pretty big deal, because for the last 12 years, all Mercury-Neptune trines have taken place in the element of water. And that's because Neptune has been traveling through the zodiac sign of Pisces. That means it formed trines to Mercury when it was in either Cancer or Scorpio. Water is an element that's very much associated with the psyche. Indeed, the word psychic is a very appropriate word to use with Mercury traveling through a water sign or Mercury forming a trine to Neptune in a water sign. All right? So psyche comes from the Greek word for soul. All right? And soul is associated to the element of water. And so when someone is psychic, well, it's kind of like in those movies we see where they sort of fall into a trance and they have images and feelings and maybe even the camera tilts or suddenly goes into a red negative light or something. And that tells us that the person's being psychic, or they see glimpses of things. It's like seeing glimpses through a dream. But even though I'm being silly in my examples, psychism is something that's very, very serious. And people do have this unique ability to go into a kind of sleep-like state where they channel an energy or a spirit that's larger than themselves, and they can prophesy, or they can read someone, or they can deliver a message. So psychism is something that's always associated to water because it pulls on the unconscious. It lowers the conscious mind down into the unconscious mind, like when we go to sleep at night and have a dream, so that when we come back from that psychic experience or when we wake from a dream, we can barely remember what had taken place before. So this is how I would describe the association of psychism to water. And Neptune, as we know, is very much the planet of visions and visionaries. Now, when we switch the element from water to fire, it changes, okay? Water can be heavy, sleeping, slumbering. That's where it experiences its psychic state. Fire is very awake. It's very alert. And the difference can also be described in the differences between soulful and spirited. Soulful is a sort of heavy or depth. Spirited is excitable. It's very alert. It's very awake. And spirited, the spirit, is always associated to the element of fire. It's uplifting, it's forward thinking, and it's active and activating. When people have a spiritual experience, it's something that really strikes them very powerfully. And it can happen while they're conscious and when they're awake. and they can be all kinds of excitable, after this particular experience. So what does Mercury, which is the planet of the mind, do when it forms a trine to Neptune in a fire sign? Mercury right now is in the zodiac sign of Leo, and it will be forming the trine to Neptune in the zodiac sign of Aries. Well, this is intuitive flashes, okay? And intuition and intuitive flashes aren't the same thing as psychic experiences because they happen in the waking mind, okay? All of a sudden you're seized with this feeling of like, that's it, or you get an intuitive flash. You get a sudden sense of where to go or what to do, or it just somehow feels right. It's not often associated with an image. It's just this really, really strong impulse that comes on. But it's not impulsive like being brash and impulsive and even reckless. It's impulse because there's a feeling that there's something that's speaking through you or urging you on. It's not quite a voice, but it's definitely a presence. Okay. And so just this intuitive feeling that this is right and this is what you need to do. So again, intuitive isn't impulsive. Intuitive just knows. And this urgency that you're going to feel, that you'll experience with this Mercury-Neptune trine on June 28th, this urgency is good because not only will you have an intuitive flash or a feeling for something, but because of the fiery nature, it's going to get you to act on what it is that you are sensing, rather than rolling over and going back to sleep, which might happen with a dream or something along those lines. So this is going to be a very galvanizing experience. It's going to be a very invigorating experience, this intuitive experience where you just know and you have to act, and what you act on is just right. But with anything that involves a Mercury trine to Neptune, good luck trying to explain the reasons to someone who hasn't experienced this for themselves. Signs most affected are Aries, Gemini, Leo, Libra, Sagittarius, and Pisces. On June 29th, Mercury forms an opposition to Pluto. You always want to check the fine print when Mercury is opposite Pluto in the sky. It usually involves something trivial. Maybe it's an annoying technicality, a harmless condition that got slipped into a contract last minute, or a discrepancy that you should check up on, but decide not to. You ignore these signs at your own peril. Yes, it may be a drag splitting hairs over the wording of an agreement, questioning the conventional truth that's universally accepted, or pursuing a line of inquiry that clearly makes superiors uncomfortable. But you're the one who will have to pay the price if you don't. It may not seem like much now, but one day it will. And if you don't do it, then you will have only yourself to blame for making excuses for something that was inexcusable. Signs most affected are Taurus, Gemini, Leo, Virgo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. If you enjoyed what you saw, please press the like button. It helps more than you know. If you could subscribe, that would be wonderful. I've had such a wonderful time visiting with you this week, and I can't wait to get together next time on Christopher Renstrom Astrology.